EricHunley has the. I don't know who that son of a bitch thinks he is.
Welcome to Laid Back Law with your favorite lawyers from around the interwebs.
No. Piers Morgan is doing the hide my boner lean. That's what he's doing. Look at him.
I think this is actually the first time that a billionaire cut safety standards, and it was the billionaire themselves that died.
And that's what made Poliere's. I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name.
Poliere.
I'm board certified criminal trial law in Florida. I'm your man. Of course, you have to compensate me.
Discussing the most pressing of topics every Friday at noon Eastern Time.
I did this way before him. I had the big brain panel before EricHunley even existed.
That may be, but I'm still here. Welcome to the weekly legal panel. I am back. Nate and I are on the screen at the same time, so we can prove that we're not the same person and people weren't confused. And we have Sean with us. We're waiting for a few people to trickle in. And should we get right into it? It's Groundhog Day.
Well,
it is Groundhog Day.
Happy Groundhog
he didn't see
Day.
a shadow or whatever the spring coming soon thing is.
Yes, actually, that's a funny point because he did not see his shadow, so therefore spring is coming early. However, Punxsutawney Phil, I don't know if I'm saying that right, has been accurate only 40% of the time since they've been tracking it. So
It's like Sex Panther. 40% of the time, he's right all the time.
Perfect analogy. All right, well, great. Let's start off with our first story, and this is to me a good follow-up from a few weeks back when I was talking about AI prawn, I guess, being used on female students in high schools and things like that, where they were taking their headshot and turning them into prawn figures, which is, obviously really distressing and a huge problem. Not many people seem to care, but now we do care because America's sweetheart is the victim. So what do you guys think about this? Because I think there's some discussion to be had. I don't know what can actually be done about this. If you look at AI, because I dabble into AI imagery and things like that, and go to some of these sites and actually create a login, to save models and things like that, if you set them up to be uncensored, trust me, it's uncensored. The imagery that nerds come up with is pretty dark. So my question is, one, is there anything we can do about it? Should there be something done about it? And what about the principle of satire or parody? And
that's an interesting question. It's clearly free speech.
Right.
It falls under that category. But
it's harassment too, or could be seen as that. I don't know. I think that there's some real questions here. I saw Nate suddenly go, But
yeah, I don't think you can just label it because it's a likeness, right? Your likeness is protected under certain situations. So if you're just using someone's likeness, you could have an issue there.
Has Taylor Swift copyrighted her face is the question. Because if her likeness is a brand, which it very likely is, I know that she has a number of legal maneuvers to protect herself in the instance that anybody wants to use her likeness. So it should be protected free speech. But if there is a copyright issue, I could see how she could sue creators of deepfakes. This is new legal territory, and it could set an interesting precedent. But I don't know. I'm curious. Nate, what's your...
I'm thinking just like Superman, for instance. If I create a comic book drawing and create the Superman character and put it in a comic book and start selling those books, technically I'm violating their copyright and possibly trademark. But then if I create an AI generated, like what's the difference between generating it via AI or me actually drawing that particular comic book? So I'm thinking, and even if it's a comic book of Taylor Swift, right? She has the rights to her likeness and things of that nature.
I don't know. I think it gets a little sketchy on that. And I'm going to pull up another picture to get off of Taylor Swift, since she's so protected and sacred. I'm going to share another image that's the same basic principle. Mm-hmm. And this image, I feel, should offend everyone.
Oh.
Now, I would
shows us
argue
what
that
we
that's
find in the way.
commentary.
I don't know. I can see it being satire. I can see it being commentary, but I can also see, we're talking about kind of different things here. We're talking about something political, something that's versus. It really depends. It's really contextualized. It's really contextualized.
Yeah, I think this one's far easier to say. Oh, this is satire. It's political because it's got political figures. But even with the Taylor Swift thing, they making comic books would be one thing, but this is just like. You go on AI, you don't pay for the service. You just like, I'm going to use AI and and print, you can get to spit out whatever you want. So, I mean, it's if people started like just drawing sketches and post, like, I mean, I think you're going to part of the deal is I think if you don't let it become a big deal, you're Streisand affecting it. And you're like, okay, whatever. People want to be idiots. Fine. Like Taylor Swift has left it alone, but her fans are the reason why it's getting out of control. I think they're feeding the fire.
The question is somebody profiting off of her likeness? Because if they're selling this image, if this is making money for somebody else, then I could see reasonable damages that could be,
hurting
measurable.
someone, but even hurting her brand or hurting her ability to make money could also be damaging.
Does it hurt her brand, or does it
If her brand is squeaky clean, Miss American, all American girl, then now you're putting her in, kind of like a porn scenario. Then I think she could make the argument that that's hurt her brand.
Perhaps.
How is this different than photoshopping people? Which is a long since tradition. Isn't this a modern version of Photoshop?
In a sense.
And that's been going on for decades. Right? I mean, you take somebody, you Photoshop, a Photoshop body on it, blah, 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 blah. It goes out there. What has been done about that? Again, I feel like it's because it's Taylor Swift, everybody cares. I'm more concerned about, a high school girl getting picked on or bullied with images like this, which, I mean, we already have a ton of problems, especially with young women in high school.
Well, when it's a non-adult, when it's a minor, then it gets into the category of, then there are illegal elements to that based on what state you're in, revenge porn, distributing images, although there is still a free speech element to it. So it gets really murky. I wonder if this will become a big enough problem because, like you said, it's like a version of Photoshop. It could have been cut and paste, like you cut her face out of a magazine, you use some Elmer's glue, you put her on the body of a Playboy model in a little catalog or whatever. With the minor, it could be different though. That's a different circumstance.
Oh yeah, I know. James Spars is right. Photoshop even has AI in it right now.
That's true. No, but I don't remember. I don't know if you guys remember when Kanye West did that photo album where he had all the celebrities like laying in bed
with Taylor Swift.
Swift. But he literally called each one of them and said, "Hey, I'm going to use your likeness. Would it be okay?" And then it was an issue because Taylor said yes, but then she said no, and then there was like a whole bunch of issues here. So I think even in that, it all really depends on what you're using it for, how much you're using it for, and if it's clear that this is if it's going to hurt the person's brand or if you're making money from it. So, but I don't think there's any what I'm essentially trying to say, there's no hard and fast rule. But I think this is going to test where those rules are at because this is a little bit more gray.
Right. Well, and where I'm going with it is, where do we go from here? Because now, Microsoft's chief is talking about AI guardrails needing to be put in, et cetera. It's like, just what we need, more censorship. We definitely, want to make sure that the wrong thing isn't said. As an example, have you guys used ChatGPT and you ask a question and it gives you a little lecture? Like, however, you should put this in this manner to be nice to another person or whatever. It's like this nanny.
It's very
on the bun.
Yeah.
Extremely woke. But I want to continue the same question because I feel like it's related to another case. How do I get this on the stage? Oh, here we go. Kat Von D is being sued for tattooing Miles Davis on a client. Now, this to me adds even more questions. Like, what rights do you have? I mean, if it's your body is technically your own canvas, I guess. So could the individual be sued, or can she be sued because she's basing it upon another image? Help me out, guys. I guess we should have Kurt here, but help me out with copyright law and whether that's a viable thing.
But one thing, all right, no one's allowed to, because again, this is, they have the right to their works. So if the canvas is somebody's body, if it's a comic book, or if it's an actual canvas, if that work is protected and someone is, if that work's protected, if someone is duplicating it for profit and they're selling, joining it for selling to put it on that particular canvas, which happens to be their body, I still think you may have an argument to say, yes, this person is violating my intellectual property rights, because that's it's textbook. Even though the canvas may be a little different, but it's still the principle, I think, is still the same.
Apparently she won 2 days ago.
See?
Yeah,
and that's exactly what it is. The canvas is still the same.
But I just wanted to explore it because I think it's an interesting question, and we're going to face this more and more and more and more. Like, I believe the Supreme Court already ruled that you can't copyright, or you can't really sue AI generated images. Except AI generated images, some of them are actually generating copyrighted images. Like they have found some examples of, give me a blah, blah, blah picture, and it matches almost exactly a previously copyrighted image. Where do you think the AI got trained? So I don't know.
There's so many different legal aspects here, because it's like Disney that just lost the copyright to Steamboat Willie. Like, there's so many different various aspects, because Disney still holds a trademark to Mickey Mouse, which is trademarking the name and that, but it lost the copyright. So now if people if they use Mickey Mouse and it looks like it's Disney's Mickey Mouse, they can still sue you on the trademark, but they can't sue you on the copyright, because you can still use Steamboat Willie's likeness for your copyright, but you can't use the words Mickey Mouse on the trademark. So it gets very, very complicated.
But how does it work, though? And again, I'm going to reach back to satire and parody and commentary, because I'm pretty sure Mickey Mouse has appeared in political cartoons. For example, when Ron DeSantis was having a battle with Disney over the supposedly don't say gay law, which never says the word gay, but we won't go into that. Let's say a cartoonist used Mickey Mouse, like all muscled up, then he's going to go punch Ron DeSantis. That, to me, is a perfectly fair use, because it's a commentary. You're not going to get confused. You're not going to say, "Oh, geez, I went to Disneyland. I expected Ron DeSantis to be there."
Well, copyrighted trademark, or copyright protects the work, trademark protects the brand. Mm-hmm. So like the name Coca-Cola is trademarked, right? You can't, if someone starts using that name, even in parody of stuff, and people people can reasonably believe that Coke is associated with the actual brand Coca-Cola, then you're in trouble in the trademark. So in that case, it all depends if people can reasonably feel that Mickey Mouse, the muscular Mickey Mouse, is associated with the Disney brand. But I'm assuming they wouldn't, because it's clear.
But it is associated. It quite literally would be associated, because you're commenting on Disney. You're commenting on Disney, the entity, and using Mickey Mouse as a representation to visually express your opinion about the case.
All right. But there's a difference in terms of whether a reasonable person would say, because the way you describe Mickey, something very muscular, to the punching Ron DeSantis in this political thing. So would a reasonable person consider that work to be associated with Disney? If that's true, Disney's got a case. If it's not true, then Disney doesn't have a trademark case. It's whether a reasonable person would think that's a Disney. So if it's a regular Disney, regular Mickey Mouse drawing,
it's a regular Mickey Mouse punching him in the nose.
That may be, again, that then goes into whether a reasonable person would think that was produced or made by Disney, that's associated with Disney or not. That's the question you're going to have to ask, especially with trademark.
Right. And then pulling back to Taylor Swift, I think I wanted to kind of go back to your original question, Eric, because I think that there is this thing about the Taylor Swift AI generated images. There's a difference between, you can tell that this image is clearly an artistic parody, or it looks like maybe that could be a real photo of Taylor Swift that is, Taylor Swift, in a compromised position.
Yeah.
I think that there is something to be argued for using her image to harm her brand in a way where somebody is making a realistic photo that looks like maybe she took a selfie in her bathroom or something where she wasn't wearing any clothes, versus her having relations with Oscar, the Sesame Street character, which is very obviously an artistic interpretation. And I saw some of those images and I was like, is that all there is?
Yeah.
I mean, it's crass, but nobody would look at that and think that's really happening. A reasonable person would be aware that that's so I think that it gets into more harmful territory, like harming that person's brand and their likeness. If you have something that is clearly realistic and has people asking the question, are these leaked actual nudes, for example?
Yeah. I think that, I don't know, I could see such far-reaching effects here that people aren't even anticipating. Like, one, I think a genie's out. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. Two, I think, we were talking about AI is going to harm, in my opinion, like lawyers because of doing research and things like that, and other things that's going to harm industry. But here's another industry it can harm. OnlyFans. There's going to be a point where people won't even be able to tell if that's a real person or an AI generated person doing these pictures, right? I mean, so realistically,
digital.
You could be putting a lot of suburban housewives and their hobby out of business. And that's a tragedy, isn't it?
It is. What I think the thing that AI has definitely now, and everybody's ringing the alarm bells for, is news generation. Because AI has essentially put all the journalists out of business, and that's why if you guys haven't seen, all these journalists are being fired from
LA,
and the reason why is because all the news stories are essentially AI generated anyway. It's just like, hey, just go scrape the internet and find. So a lot of these, so it's like, why do I need you to give me the same thing the AI is giving me for free? And I can have one AI give me 100 stories versus I got to hire 100 different people to go out there. So what you're losing those journalists that actually are typing in the stories and generating the stories. But what you still have is those journalists who actually go out there and do the actual interviews. So like what's her name? Taylor Lorenz did this big thing about, oh my God, they're taking all our jobs. But
the Taylor Lorenz video is a beautiful, beautiful case of confession through projection. Nothing like somebody saying, we know that these journalists, a lot of them are Nepo babies, trust fund, blah, blah, blah. She described herself in that video to the T. And I just thought that was completely, completely hilarious. Hold on. You've got the story here, Chandler.
That's the one that we're gonna cover.
Okay,
remember
cool.
we got the video for it.
James Esparta has a good comment too, though, saying this is already happening. There are AI influencers on Instagram, and I know it's going to get interesting. But
I've done an AI video, and people didn't even know it was AI. Because I was like, let me test this out to see. I did a full video. It was all AI that did all the talking, because you have the AI. I think it's 11 labs where you can mimic your voice. So I did a whole video and script. But the only problem is that. Like instead of if you put 11,000, it'll say 11,000. So you have to type it out 11,000. So it actually says the words, or $11,000.
So narration, yeah.
And then you have to put spaces, so it has the pauses and dramatic effect where but it does, and it works well. Like, most people didn't know. There was one or two people in the comments who was like, hey, this doesn't seem like Nate, but everybody else thought it was me. And I was like, wow, I could just write scripts and run videos, and nobody would even know.
Well, you know what, Nate? On that note, what did you think of the intro to the show?
I thought it was good.
That was AI of Mark Robert.
Oh wow!
Nice.
Just to let you know, I can make Mark say anything I want. No.
Yeah.
I thought you could do that.
Well, I can't do it in real life, but I have to use tools. Yeah. Can't make Mark do anything he doesn't want to do. All right, so we'll jump to the next story since we start talking about OnlyFans. That's always a good subject here. Florida mom booted from school's pickup area for promoting her OnlyFans on the car.
Now, at first, when I actually heard the story, I was like, oh, this is crazy, right? Because it was like, I was like, well, first I didn't hear about the OnlyFans part. I heard a mom had to drive across the street and drop her kids off and then walk back across the street because she was an OnlyFans model. So I was like, oh, that's ridiculous, just because it's a Christian school. But then I read the story and I was like, oh, it makes total sense why they did it.
Okay, I have to say this. Can you imagine being her kids? I mean, now think about that for a second. Because school is torture. You can be mocked relentlessly. And especially if I was a guy, just what I need is having MILF mom picking me up from school or taking me home. Can you imagine the torture that her kids could be going through for this?
I actually can, because strangely, Eric, I actually grew up with a kid who his mom was a penthouse pet. And one of the, this was in middle school, one of the kids in our grade found an old penthouse with, centerfold pictures of this kid's mom in it, which was fascinating. And I remember that very vividly.
Yeah, listen, it's so fascinating.
Well, there's more.
Yeah, well, I don't have a story that good, but
yeah, that's a pretty good story.
When a kid I grew up with and we went through school, his mom, she was very good looking woman, very, very good looking woman. She was hot. And everybody, would give him, they would tell him, man, your mom's hot. They did it to upset him and get him, just to mess with him. And can only imagine, it's like, I've seen your mom naked. Like, how many kids are going to say that? Yeah.
Oh, I know. And you have to
check out what your mom's doing.
Remember the song Stacy's Mom?
I spent my Fortnite bucks on this.
It's got it going on.
Love that song. Yeah. Fountains of Wayne. So good. Oh, wait, you're going to get copyright struck for that, Nate. You better be careful.
All right, this thing, right?
Ouch. No, I'm sorry. I feel so terrible for the son.
They're like in elementary school, right? I mean, it's incredibly embarrassing.
Here's the news report.
It's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse because you're teaching the kids early to subscribe to mom. Oh my God.
Unfortunately, she's going to get a lot more publicity now. Everybody's going to know who she is. They're all going to go to her OnlyFans. It's going to get worse for the kids.
Eric, the bigger question is, how does she do career day? And then
if
the other dads, I mean, here's the other thing too. If she does this enough, the other dads are going to start like, my son's college fund went to your subscriptions. My cousin did for you.
Forget taking your kid to work day. That would be
that hot. Here it is.
Yeah, but I'm not.
Right.
Florida mom banned from school drop-off due to OnlyFans ad on car.
About advertising her OnlyFans account,
but it's
causing a stir at her kid's private Christian school. Janice has a story from the newsroom.
And a Christian school.
This is what I am looking at when I pull up behind one of these vehicles.
Facebook messages, complaints, and TikToks.
You ban a vehicle.
Taking the front row pew at a private Christian school.
Not just a tiny little emblem on the back of a car. It is taking up the entire back windshield of two vehicles.
Lexi Thomas is a parent at Liberty Christian who wants this ad on another parent's car to stay on campus.
Is that a private school?
That other parent is Michelle Klein.
Yes.
What she has is
an
OnlyFans.
Yeah. Oh, come on,
well, it's definitely linked to, explicit content, adult content for sure.
Klein, who goes by Piper Fawn, says OnlyFans is her business.
She only shows cooking on her.
My husband and I had this, little wild, behind closed doors lifestyle that we've now decided to share.
But not all parents want what Klein is sharing. Shared at school, with some moms complaining to Klein and the school, telling her not to use the main entrance and instead drop her kids off across the street.
I was forced to have to, take it off or not come on campus.
But parents at this private school say there's a simple solution if Klein wants to use the main drop-off.
The news won't even say their full name.
And that won't seem like an easy thing to say, for sure. But for me, it supports my family. This provides a very comfortable way of life for us.
It is important.
It's legal. I pay taxes just like everyone else. I'm not breaking the law. I just offended people.
That's a distraction to my children.
But that's essentially the story.
Okay, well, again, it's a Christian
OnlyFans plug. That's awesome.
It's not just a private school, it's a Christian school.
Yeah.
This is just great. Again, I feel so bad for those kids.
Yeah.
Her kids, yeah.
Oh, her kids for sure. Other kids, I don't care. Her kids, I feel terrible for.
It must be malicious in there. Like, yo, yeah, I just checked out your mom. Yeah,
Steal their mom's credit card to look it up.
Has your mom posted yet today? When's your mom going to post?
Yeah. Well, I sent her a personalized request. When's she going to finish it?
Yeah, I sent your mom $100.
Yeah. Oh my god.
To have her do something specific.
Yeah. She said she'll play Fortnite with me.
I want a refund, right? I want a refund.
And honestly, the really sad thing is she's probably thrilled because how many people are looking it up right now? She had the site there. It's on the news. And now everywhere in town. Oh my god. Anyway, this person.
That's part of the OnlyFans host strategy, though, is you set up the page, you get caught doing it. Like if you're a cop or you're
and you get fired, and then everybody rushes in and supports you because they feel bad. Oh, good. We're already limited on ads. Thank you very much.
Or you just go on the whatever podcast and you have some some bros shame you for your your lifestyle. Meanwhile, promoting you, it's the whole.
All those males they feel so sad. They just want to support a single independent woman.
Yeah. She's got to feed her kids.
That said, though, I mean, it makes sense.
Where's the dad? I want to know where the dad is personally.
He's probably prepping the snack tray at home.
I know it's not a legal question, but I'm curious.
I do think that they do raise a legal liability issue, though. They're telling her to drop those kids off. That road doesn't have a crosswalk. Like, how are those kids getting across the highway? Because it takes those kids getting hit, and then, the school is forcing her to do that. It's not her decision to do that.
Well, no, the school is. I don't. Well, I think
she's choosing to do that. They're saying, don't bring that vehicle here.
Well,
they didn't say take your kids across the street. They didn't say any of that. She could bring another vehicle and the kids anytime. They just said, don't bring that vehicle here.
Maybe that's her only vehicle, though.
But then that's again, that would be her problem.
Remove the sticker.
Yeah, she could cover it.
Well,
up.
Because it's obscenity.
I ultimately agree. I was just thinking, I was trying to think a little outside the box here, but no pun intended.
I believe in I do believe in free speech. I get that, but the school has freedom of association.
Yeah, there's no free speech issue at a church.
Private school, yeah.
And honestly, again, it's the kids. It's like, really, what is wrong with this woman? What is wrong with her? Good God.
Well, Rack in the comments says she's advertising her OnlyFans to kids. I kind of think she's advertising it to the dads.
Yeah. And the moms too. Don't rule it out here. We are
true.
We're open to all lifestyles.
It might be a Christian school, but I'm sure some moms swing that way.
And and the other thing is too, though, it'd be one thing if this is like 20 years ago, but now that kid can actually Google that while he's sitting in the car waiting in the car, like the drop-off lane.
Oh yeah.
And it'd be no different than if she had like a Pure Romance one in the back window and the kid starts looking up all the sex toys. Like,
I would be curious if somebody's watching her stats, like as soon as she pulls the kid, pulls into the school. Oh, I got 4 new subscriptions.
Yeah, OnlyFans is looking like you have weird activity at 7:35 every morning.
But see, it's interesting because, compare it to something like, somebody owns I don't know, let's just say like a plumbing business or something, and they have a sticker on the back of their truck and they drive their kids to school. So it's not about the advertising, obviously. That would probably be allowed.
Yes.
My personal business is being advertised.
Bill the plumber. Yeah, I mean, that's perfectly fine. Most personal businesses aren't quite the same.
It's not about the advertising element, clearly. It's about the implication.
Yeah. But that is a good counterpoint that would be interesting. It's like, how do you do that? Because technically, it is not prawn. There's nothing revealed. It's just nothing more than words and her name. So I don't know. How would you guys argue that? I figure the simplest is just to say, oh, sorry. Hey, it's the school. They don't want it. Tough. Get out of there. Danny, you're right on time. We are talking about the OnlyFans mom who's not allowed to drop her kids off at school because she has a big OnlyFans / her name on the back of her vehicle. advertising to everybody. And my biggest complaint is her children have to be just mortified or humiliated daily if their kids are anything like I went to school with. But what are your thoughts?
And hold on, we didn't plan this, that Danny happened to be in a car while we're talking about the OnlyFans mom's car.
Can we see your back window there, Danny?
Oh, you're in the car too.
I want your take.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. So did the school implement this policy then?
The school said that she cannot use that vehicle to drop off the kids. And it is specifically a private Christian school. So that's relevant.
I am perfectly okay with this policy.
I am too, personally, because I'm just like...
The hall monitor is patrolling thoughts. That's a pretty good accomplishment.
Yeah, I think it's akin to kind of driving around and promoting a pornographic site or, any sort of adult activity. You don't need that kind of promotion around kids. I wouldn't feel comfortable with someone pulling up with a Marlboro sticker on the back of their vehicle to drop off their kids. So
okay, this is a good. This super chat's a good question. I kind of want to address it. If her OnlyFans wasn't lewd content, would this be different? Like if she used OnlyFans for an actual cooking show, would that change opinions? I'd say in this case, no. That's like saying, no, I'm reading Playboy for the articles. Well, which could be true because some of the best articles, like Jim Garrison had a huge expose in the 60s in Playboy. But if I'm putting Playboy on the back of my car to encourage people to go there, you're also introducing them to other naughty material, and there's an implication. But what are your thoughts on it?
Oh, I think ultimately that'd be the case too. And if it really was her just talking about cooking, they would have also shown her like at home in the kitchen cooking. Like, because I'm sure she said, "Do you guys want to see me? Like, do you want some B-roll footage of me, doing my work?" And they're like, "No, thanks."
Oh, she's doing her work all right.
I think there's something to be.
Kitchen.
I'm curious. So Danny, I don't know if you know about this. I'm happy to see you, by the way. I was curious. So technically, because I know it's free speech, but there are also like obscenity exceptions to free speech. And obscenity is very nuanced. It's particular to the place, the moment in time, the context, the environment. Could there be an obscenity argument against the free speech argument for something like this?
I think it's more so is the school publicly funded or not? Because at that point, if this is a completely private school, they get to set whatever whatever policies they want in terms of, what the kids wear, what they don't wear, when they go into class. The Supreme Court has famously held multiple times that just because a student doesn't shed their constitutional rights at the school gates. So if this was a public school, maybe there's some argument there, but I just don't see it here. And I think the connotation is with OnlyFans, not necessarily with her performance on OnlyFans. I mean, tons of people have completely legitimate OnlyFans, and I think that article analogy was right on, Eric. It's for the same reasons we cover the front of the Playboy magazines or some of the naughtier magazines at local stores. We don't want to expose kids to that. And if a private company did that, we wouldn't have a problem with it. If a private company, you walked in, you had a, I'm with Dick shirt on and it was offensive, the owner can tell you to leave. I think this is completely fine.
And I think they do actually, even in public high schools, have a right to say, no, you can't wear that shirt that has, like maybe mom's picture, blah, blah, whatever. I think that there, even in a public school, I think there are some standards and public buildings too. I mean, when I go in a public building, I don't think I can just wear whatever the hell I want. I think that there are certain decency laws. But Nate, I don't know. You're in the free the nipple state, so what are the laws there for some of that?
No, it's pretty clear here. It's if you're in a public school, your parent can drop you off without wearing their T-shirt, and that's fine. I mean, you have a free right, you have a free speech claim there as the parent. Not as the student, though. The student can absolutely be regulated on public property, and they can set out policies so long as it applies to all the students. That's our school rule.
There's the seminal case, Bongs for Jesus. Remember that case? If you're in law school, you know
bongs
bongs for Jesus, right? So there was a kid that where they had the big sign, bongs for Jesus, and the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 though that the school can make reasonable things to free speech because it can't just be a free for all because they're trying to educate them. So yes, there's reasonable, and I believe that's why even internet searches from school computers, students can't just search for anything. It's restricted based on the grade level and all that other stuff. So,
well, okay, fair enough. While we're talking about salacious, weird women, I think that's a perfect segue into E. Jean Carroll, who, if you look into some of her writings, I confess I haven't. I have a co-host who does, though. So thank you, Mark, for reading her stuff so I don't have to. While he was reading her book about Hunter S. Thompson, he was explaining it to our friend Viva Fry and giving Viva Fry the opportunity to learn about devices called Benoit balls, which he had never been exposed to, and literally pulled up a 20-year-old song where he was saying, I thought he was saying Ben was and balls. I didn't know what that was. It's always fun, discovery with Viva. But E. Jean Carroll somehow won $83 million. $83 million. Now, Nate, go ahead and explain this to everyone, how it's a totally legit verdict and Trump should be ashamed of himself and needs to be writing the check today.
Well, so just so everybody understands how this case develops. In 2019, Trump, while he was president, was accused by E. Jean Carroll of the R word. And Trump said, I didn't R word you. So in 2019, after he said that as president, she sued him saying that he defamed her by claiming that he didn't R word her when she said he R word her. And that went to court. And then New York State passed what's known as the Adult Survivors Act. Now, what that did, it opened up for 1 year. If you were assaulted by someone 100 years ago, you could sue them in New York State court for that 1 year to be compensated for your pain.
Hold on. Coincidentally, she was one of the main driver for that act. Don't bury the lead there. It was very much for her case that law came about. Now others might have tucked into that, like the guy going after Aerosmith, Tyler. We can't bury that lead. I'm fighting Nate here. Okay.
Yeah. So they passed this, and you're right. I think it's pretty much for Trump, and obviously for the overall Me Too movement. So you had all these cases come up against Bill Cosby was sued under this law. Everybody was sued under this law. So that's E. Jean Carroll too. Now, since E. Jean Carroll,
before I just want to point out, you said you think it's about Trump. There's a whole expose that was discussed about how E. Jean Carroll was talking with Kathy Griffin and some political elites about this attack at a party, which she remembered this attack at a party, and that they actually contacted New York State officials. Like, this is not like something like it may be about how to resurrect a way for her to create a civil suit based on something that was clearly well beyond the statute of limitations.
We all recognize.
So it's not like it was maybe for him.
It was for him.
It was expressly the intention of this law to be able to go after him.
How disgusting. You know what? Every single one of those politicians in New York should absolutely be recalled. If they could do this, and this is why, because if they could do this to attack Donald Trump, why the F did they not do this to attack the predators who've been going after kids, either in the Catholic Church or otherwise, for decades?
They did do that. It's called the Child Survivors Act. That's what Kevin Spacey was sued under.
I see. So this specifically is for adults who were
At first, because of that happened, they did the Child Survivors Act, And Kevin Spacey was sued at that. Then they said, well, you know what? We should do this for the adults because adults have the same issue too. So we'll do the Adult Survivors Act. So it was the next step in that process. But this
one has a sunset, which is unique.
Yes, this one has a sunset, which the other one doesn't. So
So there's no statute of limitations on child survivors, as far as I'm aware, federally. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Federally, yeah.
It's an extra. They give an extra 10 years, I think, or something.
I think for New York, yeah.
And they toll it, and I think on a federal level also, because in the federal court with Ghislaine Maxwell, that's how they were able to bring up Mann Act issues with respect to Ghislaine Maxwell.
Important note, by the way, Kevin Spacey did win every case against him.
Yes.
Oh yeah, he won.
The survivors who actually survived to get to the case level. That's true.
There's that point. Yes, the survivor issues.
Oh,
I feel like I derailed Nate when he was in the middle of giving the whole background. So
no, we're having a conversation. It's fine.
Yeah.
So we were at E.G. and Carroll. We talked about Carroll Trump too. She had sued him under the Adult Survivors Act, saying that he R-worded her. But now you had two cases. You had the defamation case, and then you had the Adult Survivors Act case. So what the court said is that, hey, the main issue in both cases is whether he actually R-worded you or not. Because if you could prove that if in the defamation case, you'd have to prove that he R-worded you to win the defamation case, to prove that it's false when he said he didn't do it. So what we're going to do the second case first. We're going to see if E.G. and Carroll can prove that Trump R-worded. I keep actually saying R-worded her, but I have no choice. R-worded her, so that if that was true, if she can prove that, then when he denied doing it, he obviously was there, so he had the requisite mental state, which is actual malice. And then if he said he didn't do it, it defamed her and yada, yada, yada.
By the way, for those of you who are confused, R-worded actually means he called her retarded.
And she very much is.
So here is what they went to trial, and here is what the jury said about the R situation, which is going to be here on the screen. But so the jury says, did Miss Carroll prove by a preponderance of the evidence that? Can you guys see this? Yeah, you guys.
It's not up here.
Oh,
here you
sorry.
go. I got it.
Let me make it bigger. But anyway, it says, did Miss Carroll prove by a preponderance of the evidence that Mr. Trump R-worded her? And the jury said no. So the jury comes back and says, well, he didn't R-word her. He did this other thing, which is called sexual blah. But now, one thing that people have to understand, the R word is essay. All R words are essays, but it's just a more specific type of essay.
Well, it's like assault to murder, correct?
Yes. It's a very more specific type of. So all R words are essays. So this made sense. It's like, okay, well, he didn't R word her, he essayed her. So we're going to So after this ruling came down, Carroll's lawyers went back to the court and said, okay, we want to change everything in that original case, the 2019 case, Carroll won. We want to change all of those things that said R word to essay. So we want to make it say all essay. And the judge said, well, you don't got to do that. When the jury in this case said Trump essayed her, they really meant he R-worded her.
He's a mind reader.
So we're going to say, so as a matter of law, in the first defamation case, we're going to say that the jury actually found that Trump R-worded her and not just essayed. So we're going to treat it as essay. And now the only thing the jury has to do is come up with a number because Trump was already guilty of the R. But now, so Trump's lawyers, and that's why you kept hearing Trump's lawyers getting all upset and getting kicked out, because they were like, this is ridiculous. We have a definition of the R word. It's here. The jury said he didn't do it. So how could he be liable for R-wording her when they said specifically he didn't?
Or defamation by saying I didn't.
I didn't
because the jury agrees.
Said, I didn't. Yes.
Well, because
but the judge said no.
Standard, right? The preponderance of the evidence.
But even by the preponderance, he didn't do it. He didn't do it. So what the judge specifically said that colloquially, most people don't believe the R word colloquially is understood as, even fondling and all that stuff, where legally it's understood as something different.
You see, this is my issue with it. Because both questions were on there. They explicitly had both questions. They answered yes to one and no to the other. So to me, there's no wiggle room. They said it didn't happen.
I'll tell you this much. I think when he wins on appeal, he can bring a defamation suit against her for claiming that he R-worded her.
Well, it is defamation per se, very clearly.
Yeah. And he'll win. He'll win just like he did against Stormy Daniels in the NDA.
This $83 million verdict actually could be flipped around on its head at her.
Did he appeal the first case yet, or is that?
Well, he appealed both cases.
Okay.
But let me present this judge's ruling so you guys can see it. So the judge essentially said, even though the jury said that claimed that he didn't R-word her, we're going to say that he did. So the judge, it says right here.
It just sounds like, here, come on down to New York courts where the rules are made up and the rulings don't matter. Like,
to be fair, it's federal court. It's not New York State court.
Forgive me.
I guess Engoron isn't state court. The civil suit is in state court.
Don't forget Alvin Bragg. He's got his own tradition. So
yeah.
Well,
so here it is. Okay.
I was going to say your explanation of how the judge did it, I think, is actually probably the easiest way to explain it. By the way, that if people are saying that doesn't make sense, that's literally what he did.
Well, this is it. I'm going to read it. The finding that Ms. Carroll failed to prove that she was blanked within the meaning of New York penal law does not mean that she failed to prove that Mr. Trump blanked her, as many people commonly understand the word blank. So he said that the definition in the law was too narrow and that he was going to expand it. Now, the problem with this, obviously, with all those lawyers, is that just like, for instance, with robbery, like when somebody gets something stolen, be able to say, I was robbed. And you say, no, you weren't robbed. That's a simple theft. That's not a robbery. Because legal definitions and legal terms have specific meanings. And if this judge can find in one instance, blank means one thing, then you have another courtroom that could say blank means something else. So it could just be now a free-for-all. What the hell does blank really mean? In this courtroom, it means one thing. In this courtroom, it doesn't mean something else. So that's the main issue here. So right now, Trump has to pay $83 million because a judge said, even though a jury found that he didn't blank this woman, he believes the jury really found that he blanked this woman.
All right, you know what? I'm going to get the common parlance to this. To test the judge's theory here. Get some common parlance. I put a poll up in the chat. Does anybody think that the R word and SA are the same thing? Yes or no? So there we go. We're just going to ask the chat because this is normal, common people like me, non-lawyers, and I want to see how confused the community is. We're at 91% saying no. Shockingly.
But we did just explain it to them.
That's a malformed question because all blanks are essays. It's just a more specific form of
hold
essay.
on. No. They are not the same thing. It is not a badly. You're saying that that's part of the procedure. Yes, but they're not the same thing.
Essay encompasses
all assaults, all murders are assaults, but not all assaults are murders. So it's the same basic thing. If I say, is murder and assault the same thing? No, they're not the same thing.
All murders are assaults. So I'm going to make sure everything.
But they're not the same thing.
They're not the. Go ahead.
No, Eric. It's not the same thing. But if I kill you, I caused you physical harm and caused your death.
Sure, I agree with all that.
So the assault is a lesser and included. So the SA would be the lesser included of the grape, is what Nate's trying to say there.
Yes.
How stupid am I? No, I'm not stupid, idiot.
All homicides are murders, but not all murders are homicides.
Thank you.
Well, no, it's actually manslaughter would probably be that way. I think if you're trying to convict someone, okay, did they commit murder? No. Okay, well, maybe they committed manslaughter instead.
Let me back up again.
Okay.
I can absolutely comprehend what Nate is saying.
Oh, okay.
That an assault, and I'm going to the murder assault, it's easier to say them out loud.
Yeah.
All murders have an assault, but do not tell me an assault and a murder are the same thing. They are not the same thing. If the person didn't die, holy cow, that was attempted murder. That was assault. It was all of that.
Sure.
But they're not the same thing. This is not a trick question here. Just because one is part of a path. Come on.
No, it's like have you ever seen those Venn diagrams? With the circle and a small circle inside. That's it. Assault would be that big circle, and in the circle, the smaller circle would be murder. So technically, if you've been murdered, it is an assault. but it's a more specific type of assault. That's what we're trying to say.
To look at it
an assault greater level of harm.
I think part of the reason this gets very confused is because we're on YouTube, and when we're talking about things, you can't really say that word. So instead of saying that word, the big scary R word, you say SA to stand in for it. And I think that can get confusing because we're talking about one thing when we mean another. So we can't really be clear in our language. And that's part of the issue with the censorship. And I think it does get confused because we're not on Rumble. We can't talk about this openly and freely. So we can't say what really happened. We have to minimize all
essentially the jury could have believed that he walked up to her and went honka honka, and now they're saying that is our word.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well,
yes.
Well, and Eric, to your point though, you wouldn't say that he walked up to her and went honka honka if you were saying he R-worded her.
I think
correct.
So that's to Eric's point, is that the judge is literally saying that the jury, when they said honka honka, they meant the R word. That's what the judge is interpreting. So to Eric's point, I think that's fair. I wouldn't go up to someone and kill them and then say I assaulted them, right? I would say, yeah, I killed that, whatever else. So to your point, Eric, I get what you're saying. You're saying even under the common parlance, there's a problem here, a logical distinction that people are going to make naturally. And so it's inappropriate, even in utilizing the common parlance argument, to say that, because no one says that. No one goes up and says honka honka as a euphemism.
That needs to be the new term for
I love
SA
honka
from now
honka.
on.
I do like that. I think it's
love
very
honka honka. It's visual, and it just is great.
You're welcome.
That's essentially what they found Trump liable for, is the honka honka, not the R. And matter of fact, and by specifically finding him not liable for the R word, it's like I don't see how this judge can just say, well, you know what, we're still going to make it. It's the R word. It's like,
okay, compare. No. So like, I know it's a different jurisdiction and a different kind of court. So you have criminal court, Casey Anthony in Florida. They tried her on first degree murder charges.
Yep.
They couldn't find that. And then later it was said that, if they had charged second degree, perhaps, or manslaughter, perhaps she would have been convicted. But that was not the case. Now in the Trump case, they had the secondary charges. So, you might be able to see, okay, I see, preponderance of the evidence for this particular thing. Obviously, the threshold is lower in civil court, but see, they had that there. So they were, I compared to the Casey Anthony thing because we can see that this person probably did something, but we don't have enough to convict or to find liable for blank.
But now I do want to ask people how crazy it is that the judge, because to me it seems like the judge kind of went above and beyond to try to find, like, even like I would suspect that the judge would have said, okay, amend your complaint to say SA, but to say like, hey, we don't even need to amend the complaint, we're gonna find the judge. Like,
Nate, are you saying that Trump didn't get a fair trial?
Yes, I'm saying it's.
And by the way, even if you amended the complaint to say SA, he said explicitly, I did not R her. He didn't say I did not SA her. He said I did not R her. But so it was fact. He stated a fact that the jury already agreed with him on.
But think about my reasoning for that is because then I could make the argument that that the R word and SA, like SA is the R word, right? So by them finding him liable, then by him saying
again, it's not though.
Potato, semantics.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. At least gives you that semantic argument. But I don't think there's any argument now because they specifically found him not liable for the R word.
Yes, and anyway, I find the whole thing disturbing.
Is very clear then, because they're saying no, he's not liable on the R word, he's liable on SA.
Yes, here it is right here.
Right, so you can't. So the judge can't even argue that the SA is a euphemism for the R word.
No, you can't. It's just, oh God. Yeah, Pasha brought up a good point. Remember, the Canadian truckers were accused of using Hong Kong as a salutation out of 1940s Germany. So maybe we can't even use that. Oh God.
Yikes.
Yeah, but here it is. It's right here in black and white. He injured her, and they didn't even. And matter of fact, they didn't even talk about the forcible touching. They didn't even answer that. So and gave him $2 million. But here it is.
All right, to Joe's countersuit idea. One thing I have to say is I hope that she still has some money to pay.
what she's going to do with the money. You and I are going to go shopping. We're going to get completely new wardrobes, new shoes, motorcycle for Crowley, new fishing rod for Robbie. Rachel, what do you want? Penthouse? It's yours, Rachel. Penthouse and France? You want France? You want to go fishing in France? No? Oh, all right. Okay.
That's a joke.
All right. So our victim is doing the Oprah. Hey, how about a penthouse for you? A motorcycle for you? Oh yeah.
You get a car. You get a car. Everybody gets a car.
We're gonna really take this seriously.
Oh well, I mean,
she wants
but the other thing is she's claiming she's going to be like using his money to buy them all gifts. There's no way in hell she's going to have any chance at all of executing on any portion of this. If she gets $1 million out of this, her attorneys have done trying to execute on this $88 million judgment is next to impossible. Because if there's a judgment against him personally, ask yourself, how much money do you think that Donald Trump keeps accessible, an account that can be attached in his own name? We know that from the Engoron suit that every building has its own different corporate entity. Every is his Trump organization. He has his Trump campaign funds. He has building 40 Wall Street. Everything he has. Everything is incorporated under a different name, which is what any businessman would do. Any businessman who is 1/100th his size would do. So a judgment against him personally is going to be so difficult to attach, not to mention the fact that because he lives in Florida, where I understand, I've never tried executing in Florida, but it's called debtor's haven because what I heard from a Florida execution attorney is that if a person is the primary supporter of his family, you can't garnish his wages even. So I mean, that's how bad it is in Florida. So I think that her chances of seeing even 1 million out of this are like one in a 1,000. They will struggle to find anything. So they can all have their pipe dreams like, oh, he's going broke. He's not going to have money for a campaign. It's not going unless she's able to successfully take this and convert it to pierce the corporate veil against these different corporations, which seems really remote, but who knows? It's Donald Trump, and the rules don't seem to apply when you're trying to go after Donald Trump. But unless she's successful in that, I'm telling you right now, she'll never see anything of this. This is all about PR.
Well, do you think the corporate veil works the other way?
It works both ways. You can't just. Unless
he owns the corporation, that's an asset of his. No,
I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you right now. They're going to struggle to get. They're going to struggle.
Oh yeah,
to get
he's going to tie them up in court.
Didn't you do debt collection at one point, Joe?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay, so this is kind of your shtick,
but
right?
You know,
in New York.
But my question is, how likelihood is he going to win? Well, I'm assuming he's definitely appealing. He's already appealing, but how likely is? What's his likelihood of success?
Oh, I mean, look, we're laying it out here when we're talking about the distinction between honka and our wording. So, I mean,
can I comment on Eugene Carroll really quick? There was there's a portion of the video in the beginning, Eric, that I thought was really important because the way that this whole thing comes up, Rachel Maddow actually says, this is going to be so great. You're going to donate this money to women's rights organizations, correct?
And buy stuff. Yeah.
And this is going to do some great things for women to help them and to support
that's why they silenced her afterwards. That's why they felt awkward. Because she said she was going to do that. She said she was going to do that, and the next thing you know, she's saying, "I'm going to buy you a motorcycle. And I'm going to buy you Paris."
She delights in it. I find it extremely suspicious.
All right, let me share that. I didn't know. I was trying to just get to the meat of it.
And here's what you had to say.
You've talked about using some of Trump's money that you're about to get to help shore up women's rights. Do you know what that might be? What that might look like?
Yes, Rachel. Yes.
Tell me.
I had such great ideas for all the good I'm going to do with this money. First thing, Rachel, you and I are going to go shopping. We're going to get completely new wardrobes, new shoes, motorcycle for Crowley, new fishing rod for Robbie.
Okay, I stand corrected. It can be even worse than what I thought. Wow.
Yeah. That's why they look uncomfortable at the end. That's why the woman on her left looks so uncomfortable.
That's what I said. This is a joke. It's a joke.
She's look. Everybody's uncomfortable around her. Did you see the Anderson Cooper clip with her when she was talking about things being sexy?
Women like
she
that
was
stuff.
very uncomfortable around her. She's
women
weird.
really like it.
She's disgusting.
She's cringe. Like there was a video they were showing on Twitter for a while. She was giving like a tour of her house, and I don't know if it's like she has a house in the woods, but like she painted all over it. This is where the mouse lives. And
she
then
paints the trees and the rocks in her backyard, and
she started painting all the trees and rocks, and her one shed out back looks like that's where everyone she's ever killed. She wrote their names on it.
Her cat's named after a venereal disease.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's true.
Woman's a psychopath.
Which one?
She's a piece of work. Ian, your thoughts? You keep interrupting us, man. I don't know. No, just kidding.
I mean, it's an American trial that I just haven't been following a whole lot of because I know that anything I post on it, it's just going to be shut up Canadian nonstop. So I'm like, I'll leave that to you guys.
Oh God, you know what? You're pure. I've seen this lately, and I think it's hilarious. People get so mad at David or Viva Fry now posting anything about Canada. They're like, "You're not even here, you son of a bitch." So Canada, you guys used to be so nice. But over recent years, it's like, what happened? Is it a hockey game in the world? What's going on?
No, it's Trudeau.
Yeah, it's osmosis from Trudeau. It's osmosis from Trudeau.
Well, he's been playing games of division and blaming the other side for it the whole time. But everything he does is literally about, like, let's try to split Canadians along various lines as part of his electoral strategy. So, and people are like, the scale of sort of how bad the economy is getting, I don't think even a lot of Canadians realize it because we've got these homeless camps that are springing up, and a number of the people in the homeless camps are people who are working full-time jobs.
Oh, Jesus.
They just can't afford, rent and groceries. And so, I end up seeing them in the criminal sphere in the sense of they're people who were just kind of ordinary taxpayers up until like, oh, well, now they're, stealing from a grocery store because they can't afford to live. You've got mothers who are stealing like formula, and it's nuts. And I mean, there's always been some of that, but the explosion of this sort of, people who never thought of themselves doing that kind of thing, it's getting bad. So
I was in Toronto like 5 years ago, and I was told that the average price for like a 1-bedroom place is near $1 million.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can't afford anything in Toronto or Vancouver. It's just not possible.
That's just like Los Angeles. I mean, it's LA prices, San Francisco prices.
Well, I grew up in Vancouver, and people are like, "Oh, why don't you want to live? Like, why don't you live in Vancouver?" I'm like, just how much money do you think I make?
And even if your family had the house, the property taxes would probably kill you.
Oh, the house I grew up in
Salt Lake
now
is,
would.
Salt Lake too?
is just as bad. Yeah, everybody thinks, oh, it's more rural, it's a small city, so it'll be a little cheaper. Nope. And it's hitting everywhere because these huge conglomerates are coming and buying up property, and China's helping them. And so what they do is they come in, buy up all the property, build these homes that no one can afford, jack up the prices, and then go to the community centers and say, oh, we need rent control and we need all these other initiatives in there so that way we can force our competition into renting their properties to people who can't actually afford it, destroy the value, and then reset the cycle again. So, I mean, it's happening all over the country.
I mean, we're really running into a problem of people buying up everything such that, land is just an investment and people can't afford to live. It's
depressing.
Yep. People's livelihoods and their homes are being sold out from under them, basically.
Well, let's go to another topic. Dylan98, this is a question for Nate, but I think it might be Nate and Joe. It's kind of vague because it's saying, explain what's going on in the tunnels. Well, there's tunnels in Gaza. I don't think that's what they're talking about. So they're probably talking about tunnels in New York
770
with the, I think it's Hasidic. I don't know, but there are some tunnels that are being.
Who knows? There's
So-
no way to know. There's no way to know. Nobody knows.
Okay, well, I was, from what I understand, from what I read, and Nate's awfully quiet, is
Yeah, I
that
don't.
they were trying to get to the synagogue and back and forth without having to go outside or whatever during COVID or something. I don't remember.
I can explain it briefly, but Joe probably
Jim,
wants to.
No, I'd love to. I far prefer to hear your explanation.
So my understanding is that the 770 building has been, there's been a sort of a land dispute because it used to belong to the rabbi. It was the first Chabad center. And in that community, in the Hasidic community in Brooklyn, it has expanded and grown because, as everybody knows in the Orthodox community, as Joe knows, there are, they have a lot of kids and they have a small synagogue. There's not enough room. And the students of the yeshiva wanted to expand it. And there wasn't really any permission from the elders in the community. So they decided that they were going to take it upon themselves to expand the building because there's not enough space. There's not enough room, at the Chabad. And so they started to dig the tunnels in order to expand the building without permission, which is controversial because they wanted to knock down a wall where that one, the one rabbi prayed. There's a lot of dispute. I mean, he died, but, technically he still owns the building. And I don't think that there was any trust or any estate that was bequeathed to anybody else. And so you have this issue of ownership. You have this issue of, these particular yeshiva students going rogue and wanting to expand the building, taking it upon themselves without getting any permission from the elders in the community. Am I right?
I mean, there's elements in there that sound right.
You know it better than I do. You're there. So,
I was very curious to hear how someone who I consider to be educated, well, based on all the stories that have come out, how it came across to them, because I think that's very telling.
It's my very uneducated opinion, but I'd
it's
love
not.
to hear.
I'm not saying that mockingly. What I'm saying
not
at all. What I'm saying is the way you explained it is a lot closer to reality than the way I've heard most people say it, and so this is okay. There's there are a lot of different kinds of Hasidic Jews. Lubavitch is one type. They're basically a sect of Hasidism, and they're the largest sect of Hasidism. After the Rebbe died, which I think was like 15 years ago or so. So they're very Messianic Jews. A lot of the Lubavitch, not all of them, a lot of them thought he was the Messiah. After he died, which when we study and talk about the Messiah, there's a dispute as to whether or not he would die or whatever. But many of them are claiming that he's still alive. Not many. This faction of young students believe he's still alive. So, and they're sort of a split off from Lubavitch. And they tend to be young single men, like between, let's say, the ages of, let's say, 15 and 25, 30. And the main branch of Lubavitch is not of that opinion. And they're the ones who now have legal control of 770. 770, which is the main synagogue where the Rebbe, he's called the Rebbe. Everyone calls him the Rebbe. That where the Rebbe was housed and was his main branch, because there are Lubavitch everywhere on the planet. I mean, they're in India. They're everywhere. So they spread out more than any other Jews, and they basically wanted, the mothership is 770, so to speak, for Lubavitch. So these young messianic Lubavitch, we'll call them, they wanted to access certain facilities that are attached to 770 that they wanted to use themselves. And the main people who have control of 770 were unaware of it. But then some people were like, we hear people talking below my house. I don't have a basement, and I hear people talking.
I hear Yiddish. I hear Yiddish in my basement, and people are telling me I'm crazy.
Yeah. So apparently, basically, when they exposed it and they knocked it out, so the ones who have control of 770 were like, you need to leave. We got to close this up. It's dangerous. Like, you just tunneled in here on your own. You're kind of crazy. We need to close this up. And they're like, we're not leaving. And they started bringing cement trucks And they're like, we're staying down here. So the main, we'll call him Main Lubavitch, contacted the NYPD and said, we want them gone. And that's the viral video that everyone saw. Now, why it is that they were going down there, I have no idea. I don't think anyone knows. And I know when I say this, people think, especially the Jewish conspiracy folks, the ones who think that
Those
every
people?
Jew.
Like this chat?
No, this is totally a joke. This is a joke based on my 24-hour stream. This is this guy is not he's not saying that at all. During my 24-hour stream that I had earlier this week, so when I had 3 Catholics on, one of them being potentially criminal. So I showed them a video of some guy who was claiming all sorts of stuff about Santa Claus, and it made them go nuts. And they were screaming, and I was like joking. It was completely a joke, and we were all joking around. And I was basically saying, "Oh, you're going to chase after me now and burn the heathen. I'm going to have to hide in a tunnel." And my group, who I've called diggers for the last 2 years, because unrelated stuff. So they were joking around that they're crusaders in the tunnel now and stuff like that. That's all that was. So
okay, fair enough.
Yeah, that was 100% a joke.
All right, this question came in earlier. Any significant to the removal of one of Trump's cases from the court docket? Are there legit reasons for this? Ex-MAGA pundits making a big deal out of it. Isn't that because the Supreme Court's going to look at something, so they have to wait?
I'm unaware of this. Which of the main one was removed from the docket? It might have just been.
I thought it was the Jack Smith. I'm wondering if it's the Jack Smith case where the Supreme Court, part of it's gone up to the Supreme Court, and I think that stalled the case or something. I don't know.
Now I need to look into this, because I think that is something that we should.
And then while we're on that, we got E. Gene Smollett. I went for a sandwich at 2 a.m. He yelled, "This is MAGA store," and forced me into the changing room.
That is very weird. So his DC case was removed from the docket? That's very weird. I mean, that case has already been suspended because it's on appeal right now before the appellate court, and people anticipating ultimately is going to get before the Supreme Court. So everything is. The best I can speculate about this, the most likely thing that I can speculate, and I don't practice, federal criminal courts. I can't tell you. I don't want you to say is like this is what Joe. This was Joe's legal analysis.
Everybody clip this.
Analysis.
Clip it now.
This is not legal analysis. This is speculation based on what I understand about law without me saying this is what happened.
This is the most accurate and up-to-date legal analysis, right?
Absolutely.
Here it comes. So factually, what we know happened is this. There was a whole issue as to whether or not criminal charges could be brought against Trump for something that, or whether it first needs to be preceded by having him be impeached and convicted, and this issue is a massive issue for knocking out the entire Washington federal case. So there was an application brought so he lost that at the district court level. It's now pending before the DC Circuit Court. They've already heard oral argument, but have not yet issued decisions. And then after that, and there was an application made by Jack Smith to jump to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said to Trump, what are your thoughts about coming straight here? Trump's team said, we don't want to come straight here, although it probably will end up here, but it's better if it's fleshed out at the lower level. SCOTUS seemed to agree with that and left it in the DC Circuit Court. We are now currently waiting for the DC Circuit Court to issue an opinion based on the panel that was assigned to this case and the nature of the questions they asked. We should anticipate that they will rule against Trump and allow this case to proceed, at which point we should anticipate it probably will go to SCOTUS. However, under federal rules, once this appeal is going on and it relates to covering the entire issue of the case, everything that has to do with the case is supposed to be suspended, and there's not supposed to be any filings. And Jack Smith was well aware of this, and yet still kept filing different discovery things. And he was filing this discovery thing and that discovery thing. And even Judge Chutkan had to sort of admonish him, saying, what the hell are you doing? You're not allowed to file anything. And he still kept filing. So it could be that if it was removed from the docket, specifically so that they don't have to keep having this friction of Jack Smith saying, it's not really discovery, I'm allowed to file this, I'm not. Instead of doing that, if they remove it from the docket, it makes it literally impossible for him to file anything. And it could be that they felt politically, rather than having this conflict between the judge and Jack Smith, where he keeps doing these stupid filings and she keeps saying, what the hell are you doing? You're not allowed to do that. And I get in trouble for allowing the discovery to proceed when the federal rules clearly say you can't proceed while it's under appeal. So instead of they could have simply stripped it off of the docket just to sort of handcuff him to prevent him from filing anything. That's my best guess, but that's definitely not that's not definitive. I don't want anyone to say, well, Joe, that's what your opinion as a lawyer. That's my best guess based on the facts we've seen so far.
All right, I got a couple
I mean, any of you have thoughts on PC? Which, I'm sorry, I keep calling you that. I said it as a joke once. And Sean, do you have thoughts on that? Like whether that makes sense, what I said? Are you still there?
Sorry, Joe, I had to step away for a second. What were you saying?
It's fine.
No, I honestly, sorry.
Exactly. He agrees 100%.
Of course he does.
Joe, smartest man in New Jersey right there. No, I had to step away for a second. I'm sorry.
No problem. Sean, I
can wrap it up in 15 seconds. Do you think it makes sense that they would take it off the docket in the Washington, D.C. federal case to prevent Jack Smith from continuing to file new stuff, which Chuck doesn't want to do?
Yes, he can't mind his manners. So
that's why. So that makes sense. Why
and
they would take
I also think Judge Chuckton's in this place where she doesn't know when she's going to be able to do it because the other trials are set. She can't jump in front of them, so it's in hiatus for now. You know, it'll be whenever it happens.
See, our great leader is infallible. Very, very well done, Joe.
I got a couple rants I want to slide in really quickly. Lost Core 23 said missed potentially criminal on CFC today. Don't know what that is, but that's Sean.
Council of Future Conflicts. It's a panel. It's a panel group. 8 a.m.'s on Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Okay, well,
you're on
then
YouTube Rumble.
You're a bad host or co-host. And then Rivka, the Jade Gamer, said, I wrote a poem in E. Jean's honor in response to someone asking if she's a hero. Reposted with a tag on X for Chandler. So look out for that, Chandler. That's interesting. All right. So to wrap things up, let's go with Ian because he's barely talking, and this is an American case. I know he's been following it, though. Alec Baldwin pled not guilty on Wednesday and avoided his arraignment, which he opted out. I forgot the term for it.
I mean, I get that people have to make this sound like news, but it's not news. Like, we knew he was going to plead not guilty as of, I don't know,
forever.
His original arrest, or his original, interview. And yeah, of course he was going to avoid the arraignment if he can, because why would he want to give the press any sort of appearance there? So, I mean, the not guilty was obvious. Him skipping it was also obvious. I don't know why his lawyer would have brought him there. So,
waive the hearing.
I've heard attorneys commenting that there's no way, these charges would have been brought if he had kept his mouth quiet the entire time.
Pretty much.
I agree.
And I'm wondering if you can
100%.
if you can all maybe weigh in and specify what part of his comments do you think ended up tripping him up into getting him this indictment?
I didn't pull the trigger.
Interview.
I didn't pull the trigger. It would have been unsafe for me to pull the trigger. I'd never do that.
I'm classically trained.
Yeah. Like, he's boasting about his knowledge. And the thing is if he hadn't made any of those statements, then his trial strategies, he walks into trial, says, I'm an idiot. Here's the SAG-AFTRA rules. Like, here's their guidelines. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything. I just trust the armor. Boom. He walks.
Yeah. And the first AD already pled guilty. So you've got a guilty person there. The other one's on trial. Why are you talking to me?
I don't think they'd even be bringing. I don't think they'd even be able to bring this to trial if he hadn't kept his
I agree.
His mouth.
Yeah.
So those admissions that he knows all this stuff, that's what. That's what.
Well, and also saying I didn't pull the trigger. Just saying I didn't pull the trigger. Push this to another level. All he had to do was say it was a tragedy that day. I feel terrible for her family. Please assist the investigation in getting to the bottom of it, and not talking about it at all.
Yeah, I
Because
can't do
it's-
any police interviews on the advice of my lawyer.
Yeah.
And then just have the lawyer make a statement. Mr. Baldwin feels terribly about this tragic event. He looks forward to a fulsome understanding of what happened. He's as confused as everyone else is. He'll be, he looks forward to continuing with the movie in order to help out the family and whatever else. He'd be golden. But
Yes.
because he can't keep his fool mouth shut, and every time I talk about this and say, like, Baldwin is in some soup and, them prosecuting him is not crazy, that they've got a chance of conviction here. People are like, oh, well, what about the SAG-AFTRA guidelines and so forth? And I go, that is fantastic. Until he starts blowing that up, right? And starts saying that he's smarter than your average bear.
I still think he's got a good shot of it, though, with a jury.
Agree.
He only needs one jury member to screw the whole thing up. And there is plenty of confusion as to the responsibility, her working the two jobs. I mean, there's so much for a relatively simple case, like there's 3 people there. This has got so many crazy complications, things happening, the camera crew walking off. Well, if the camera crew didn't walk off, it would not have happened, because she would have been in Video Village where she normally was and was supposed to be, but the Video Village operator wasn't there. So she was in there by the camera. If it was the way it was, the person who might have got hit was Lane Looper, the guy who walked off the set, because he was the focus puller. He would have actually been in the area where the gun was being pointed. So there's so many crazy circumstances with this case. It's mind-boggling.
Well, did you
and
also
what does
see
it say about his ego and personality? Because there's no way in hell any of his counsel would have advised him to come out and make these statements. So I'm almost certain that, I'm almost certain that he's bullying around his lawyers too. So that to me is indicative of not great trial strategy from the get-go.
And
so we'll see how this plays out, though.
The biggest weakness he's got at trial is that I suspect he's going to want to testify.
And he'll be goaded so easily.
Oh,
100%.
If I'm the prosecution, I'm sitting there and I'm having like dreams about cross-examining Baldwin. Because
the day your career is made.
It's just like...
Obviously, his lawyers are going to advise him, like we discussed a couple of weeks ago, or was it last week, that they would advise him to take the fifth, and he would not take. I don't think he's taking his attorney's advice. I mean, he's going on ABC.
I have interacted with the prosecutor.
Being on the stand will be like on TV, where you can get them to just lose their mind and just start screaming in the middle of trial.
Anyway,
he can't control himself.
I mean, everyone remembers
the
Kim Basinger thing. I mean, come on. You think how
her kid. He called his kid a little monster. That one.
Yeah, the telephone.
No, he called her a pig.
Oh, little pig. Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Yes, that voicemail. Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. I mean, think of how he's so hot-headed and the hubris. Oh my God, that would be such amazing TV.
And again, I have had an interaction with the special prosecutor, and she is not a lightweight. She's very clear and purposeful in her statements, and that would be, let's just say she's a terrier. And I think that would be a very interesting cross-examination.
I mean, I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to the Hannah Gutierrez trial as well.
That's going to set a lot of the tone, I think.
Yeah, well, especially because I think Baldwin's got a real interest in what happens to Gutierrez, because Gutierrez's trial is going to be, how much of an F up was she? And the thing I'm waiting for. Have you guys looked at the witness list for that one?
Yes.
Defense witness list includes Fel Reed.
Yes.
Oh God, that's going to be a mess.
Is going to call Daddy.
Explain the significance of that.
So Fel Reed is a legendary armor. Like, he is the guy. And Hannah Gutierrez, and the prosecution actually specifically notes in one of their documents, her name is Hannah Gutierrez. She goes by Hannah Gutierrez Reed specifically to tag his name on, because the only reason she had any sort of career as an
she's a
armorer
nepo baby.
is she's his kid.
Mhm.
And the greatest favor she ever did for Thel Reed was in an interview. She said, "I didn't learn anything from my dad," which might be one of the most correct statements she's ever made.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I like everybody I spoke to, because I went and called a bunch of like film armorers, and they all said, like, Thel Reed is a legend. He's careful. He's all of these things. And they're like, how she came from him is unbelievable. So
Here, guys, this is Thel Reed in the background. He's one of the fastest gun-slinging people on the planet in his prime. He was on Ed Sullivan's show. He would do trick there like that. I mean, the guy knows just about everything you can imagine about guns. And
that is really hard to do, guys.
No, he's not a joke. Ian, you're in the gun world. How good is he?
He's good.
That I've tried doing that before with single actions. That's not easy.
But that just gives it, I feel like a visual to who Thel Reed is. I mean,
yes,
he was in Gunsmoke as a performer. He's like every Western, especially. There's nobody better on a Western out there.
It's basically, if you had the budget and it was, we need the best, that's the guy.
And to Dom saying Gunslinger is not an armor. Yes and no. He does know the equipment. The skills do transfer over. He has been an armorer for dozens and dozens of movies, including lightweights like Quentin Tarantino and other directors. So he's both.
He's got a really good reputation within the industry, including like his direct competitors are like, yeah, it's Thel Reed. You know, that's the kind of position he's in, is where his competitors have nothing but good things to say about him. You know, it's like in the legal profession, there's all sorts of lawyers who it's like, you know, I may not even like them personally, but it's like, yeah, this is, the person you'd go to.
That guy gets results. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, this is who I'd call if I was if I was falsely accused of a murder kind of thing. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I stand behind Alec Baldwin, and I recommend
everybody does.
We've heard this joke.
Yeah, we definitely have. All right, really quickly, Runkle, can you tell the Americans, I guess us, about how Daniel Smith just destroyed all the groomers' lives with her new parental rights policy?
Now, I haven't looked in, like, I've been fighting the flu, so this just got announced. I haven't dug into it, but now, some of this is just like right-wing virtue signaling, because, for instance, she's banned top and bottom surgery for people under 17, which was already not available. So that part is just like, okay, she's flagging things, but she's got different policies about like how schools have to deal with pronoun changes. I have to go through all of it because I haven't yet dug into it. But because one of the questions people are going to be asking me is all of this constitutional? And so far, I suspect that the answer is going to be kind of. Like that part of it will be constitutional and part of it won't. So I'm going to have to pick it apart. And but all of this is just going to be a giant fight, and we'll have to see. But right now, I don't actually know if there's like a firm thing so much as just announcements. So I've got to go through it and dig through it. But she's making sort of a stand there, and it's going to be a fight. Trudeau and has sort of taken to Parliament to say that he's going to have a talk with Danielle Smith, which I don't think she returns his phone calls. It's, similarly, we've got protesters here who are demanding that Trudeau take some sort of step on, either pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. And it's like, nobody cares what Trudeau does in the Middle East. Danielle Smith isn't going to care what Trudeau calls about. So all of this is going to be chaos for a bit, but we'll have to see. There's going to be court battles starting as soon as the policy goes into effect.
All right, I've got last story. This one is mind-blowing. And over the past few years, we've had statues that have been damaged, destroyed, torn down, some by the state, some by people, and people have not been convicted for doing this. You know, these really, really bad people, the founding fathers of the United States, etc. All kinds of vandalism has been done to statues everywhere. Not many charges, but this is being rectified now. In Iowa, in the state house, they had a proper statue to Satan. And somebody tore down this statue. And this is deemed to be such a horrible crime that this person destroyed Satan that he's being charged with a hate crime. Have you guys seen that?
This is This is the strongest argument against the term hate crime imaginable. It really is. You just laid it
would be
out.
all for hate crimes.
Well, technically, Satanism is protected under freedom of religion.
Mm-hmm.
So there is
Satan
a
would
1A
love hate
argument.
crimes, though. He would love this.
I agree with you, Chandler. That you can understand how the words actually all bring us to
And the Satanism.
Semantics bring us to a place where we're like, this is technically a hate crime. But the illogic of this, of where this reducto ad absurdum that we've come to now, where this is considered a hate crime, and by hate crime meaning a much worse crime than someone smashing.
It's an enhancement.
Than someone smashing a statue of Jefferson or Washington. That this is considered a more vile crime is a reflection as to how ridiculous twists and turns our laws have taken us at this juncture, that we actually could come up with a way that, well, logically it is. Why? It's because we have the term hate crime. But if you never had the term hate crime, you couldn't come to this conclusion.
I mean, this is just perfect. I need another gun safe, so I'm just going to get one, and then I'm going to shape it like a statue of Satan. And then if anyone breaks into my gun safe, there's extra penalties for doing that.
I like that. In Canada, they're probably penalties with teeth.
I mean, in theory, breaking in to steal a firearm has like a maximum penalty of life. I don't think that has actually ever been issued to anybody.
What?
Including in situations where people have like broken in, stolen a gun, and then used it to shoot somebody.
It's just different there.
Wow. But then again, your country also released was it Carla? I forgot her name.
Carla
She's Homolka walking around, everything else. Well, Paul Bernardo's locked up.
Do you know the backstory on that one?
I do.
I know their case that he and her murdered her sister. She claimed that she was under his sway at the time, but there are videos that seem to show her being a very willing participant. Is that what you mean? Or
So, yeah, this is actually taught in law school now. In Canada, every lawyer, as part of your ethics course, you're going to learn about this case, because she makes this deal because she's sort of portraying herself as, you know, the like under his thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the lawyer had retrieved this box of videotapes and had the videotapes in his office. And so eventually he's like, what do I do with this? And they eventually get turned over to the police. But by that point, they'd already formed like a binding agreement for her testimony. And so at that point, they had committed to this agreement on the belief that she was also sort of partially a victim of this. And what it became apparent once they saw the tapes was, nope, she was full on board. She was like a 100% willing participant. And so this is actually why the rule that came out of that is that if I, as a lawyer, am sitting there and my client comes in as like, here's a gun that was a murder weapon, and sets it on my desk and leaves, I have to turn that into the cops. And so typically the way that I would do that, I mean, let's imagine it's not a gun here because gun creates additional problems, but like they come in with like an envelope full of photographs. I would have to take that envelope full of photographs, hire another lawyer, give it to that other lawyer to turn into the police without telling that lawyer anything about who the client is. So that lawyer can't inadvertently breach privilege. And then that lawyer, and I've done this for other lawyers, you just walk into the police station, you're like, hey, I have a present for you. Thump. You can take it or leave it, but that's all you're getting. And they're like, well, what is this? Nope, no explanations. It's just, here you go. And so that's now the procedure. But she skated because nobody knew what she was about. And because of that, anytime you're trying to make a deal now, they're like, we're going to hold off and do a little more investigation. Because they got burned hard on the Homolka file.
Well, she skated because she was a woman.
That's what the assumption helped. Yeah.
And she also had been, there had been documentation of abuse. She had 2 black eyes. He did put her in the hospital at one point, but she argued coercion. Paul Bernardo was the Scarborough blankist. And he committed a lot of crimes on his own, but she was very involved. I'm fascinated by that case and the way that Canadian law kind of interprets. I mean, he walked in there and they were like, we think that you're the Scarborough blankist. And he was like, oh yeah, everybody tells me I look like him. And they're like, fair enough. And he just walks out. So there's a lot going on. I mean, that's my understanding of the story. And I'm not sure if you understand it differently. It took a long time for him to get caught. And there were a lot more victims. There were three homicide victims. But by the couple.
But it's gruesome. I mean, the way she was having a blast. I mean, it was some of that stuff.
She was like really serving up her family members to him.
Yes. And getting off on it. Yeah. It's just, And also, and I understand why, because the natural assumption is that the female was coerced, etc. Doesn't get into it. There are not many cases. There's not many cases of partner crimes of that manner either. Most serial killers are solo. There are a couple, but they're rare in terms of that. Like Otis and Henry Lee Lucas work together.
Is really unusual.
That is fair. It is fair to say that it's rare homicide-wise, but actually, when you look at female predators, I did a show about this. When you're just looking at the sex crime element, those are the female predators who are most often caught, because the males are caught, and they used to be called male coerced. That was the typology. Now it's they're co-offenders. So these women have historically blamed it on their partner, and the law is like, oh, she's just a poor little woman. She was abused by this guy. He made her do it. It comes out that she's much more involved, and that actually does happen. There was a case with a woman named Crystal something in the 90s in the U.S. They found a diary of hers where she had written all about the things that she did to these girls who she would lure back to the house on the premise of babysitting. She would drug them. The guy wasn't even there. She had fun with it. So, women do this. When it gets to homicide, it's rare. But I think that Paul Bernardo escalated, and she was involved in the escalation from sex crimes to homicide. So it's a murky territory, but it is really fascinating how she did seem to get away with it.
He was showing off for her in a lot of ways.
They enjoyed it together, which was grotesque.
And some females will egg on a male criminal into doing things like, well, actually, we were just talking about one who is being celebrated now. Who, by the way, I don't feel sorry for her mother at all, but the Munchausen syndrome by proxy person who just got released, but yet the guy is still in prison for life.
Right.
I have problems with the applications of justice in these cases. But on that note, to wrap things up, always have to move things around here to get everything lined up correctly. Chandler, what do you have coming up?
So next week, I'm going to be doing Wicked Women again. I had to take a little break because I got sick for a while. I was moving, but I'm back, and I am actually going to have AV to the 7th Power on my channel. We're going to talk about Courtney Clenny next week, either Wednesday or Friday. So that'll be interesting. There are some updates in that case. For those of you who don't know AV, she is kind of the sidekick to the lead attorney. She's awesome. I love her, and I'm really looking forward to collaborating with her on the Courtney Clenny stuff. She's put up some videos recently, and we've been talking about doing a video. So look forward to that. I might also do another Wicked Women episode on something else, some other Wicked Woman. Ian, I would love to have you on sometime if you'd like to talk about Carla Homolka, because she's somebody that I wanted to talk about for a while.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are still publication bans on certain things, so we got to be careful because those apply to me and not I don't think, to you, but
Understood.
I don't know that we dig into any of those aspects. But yeah, no, I'd be down because that did end up shaping, like, as I mentioned, legal ethics in Canada has been affected.
I'd love to learn more from you. It'd be fascinating. So yeah, Wicked Women next week, Wednesday or Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Cool. Sean.
We are working our way through the Michelle Dracunis trial. Well, it's going on right now. We're going to catch up this afternoon. She is accused of, she's the mistress accused of helping her boyfriend dispose of the wife's body back in 2019, and they never found the body. So that trial's ongoing. And next week on Wednesday, I will be interviewing somebody involved in the team that helped Richard Allen get his attorneys back after the judge in Indiana just tried to disqualify him and remove him from the case. That's part of the Delphi murders that are going on out there.
That sounds cool. All right, Ian, thank you for joining us. I know you haven't been feeling very well, and it's awesome to have you here. What do you have coming up?
Just a lot of catch up. I mean, I was meaning to do Crumbly like recaps each night. That didn't become possible because, flu. But I've been going through it. I'm probably going to come up with something fairly soon, just about like the greatest misses of Crumbly's defense lawyer, because
like the whole case.
There's a bunch of them.
I mean, the thing is at times she goes and she does like a perfectly competent cross, and I'm like, okay, cool. And Jennifer Crumbly should absolutely be acquitted. Like, this whole trial is a farce. It's, and it should terrify parents out there, because if Crumbly is convicted, I guarantee you Crumbly's not the end. Crumbly will just be the beginning. So every parent whose kid gets into like, oh, your kid started getting into drugs, huh? And, then they started hanging out with a bad crowd. Well, you should have known that they might go and participate in a drive-by. You're on the hook. The number of parents who that'll end up.
I guarantee if they start doing that and they affect a specific community, then alarm bells will be going off.
It'll affect every community.
No. I know, but when you specifically say drive-bys, there is certain areas of the country and certain communities that happens frequently in, and when people of that community are affected, I guarantee notice will be paid.
But they'll spread it out. It'll be like,
the funny thing is, the county
had a hunting accident, like all of this. So
yeah, well, the funny part is where Jennifer Crumbly is being tried in Oakland County, very rural aspect where they're at, but it also has parts of the not too nice of the Detroit metropolitan region in it as well. And yeah, you're going to see some of that whole, parents having knowledge of their kids committing, out doing illegal activity. So it'll be interesting how they handle those going forward.
Yeah, gang parents, good luck.
Yep.
But in between those moments of competence, she has some stunning moments of just what the hell. She told the court, "Oh, I haven't watched this video," and the court's like, "You can see the judge go, what?"
Yes, she said, because it doesn't involve my client's case, and it's like, how do you know if you haven't watched it?
Yeah, I'll be doing something just going through just how bad that is. Also, all of this the Rust documents, there's some really interesting stuff going on, and the prosecution is starting to throw some real shade. So you're going to go through that.
I have the reply or the counter, whatever, where she was trying to throw Seth Kinney under the bus, and the prosecutor shut that down completely, saying, "No, everything I've seen, he has nothing to do with anything. Your client is the one that's mishandling the ammo." Blah blah.
And also just like they would have us believe that this was a bag of powdered sugar, and they mock the hell out of their arguments for like 4 paragraphs. It's beautiful. And so I'll be going over that pretty soon. All
right. Now, traditionally with this show, when Joe is on, good logic, because of his name and out of respect for his father, because his father's pretty wise, the great logic, that Joe will, tell us what he has coming up. And then he usually imparts thoughts.
I do have
And
thoughts.
we stand by and listen to Joe's thoughts of the day.
I have thoughts. Yeah, so I'm Good Logic. You can find me at goodlogic.locals.com, which is Locals is like this sort of like offshoot social media type of thing, and you would find me specifically at goodlogic.locals.com. You might, in case you're wondering, Good Logic, LAWGIC.locals.com. Then I got, what do we have coming up? Well, I mean, we have this whole Trump, whether or not he's going to stay on the ticket, which is coming for SCOTUS. We'll be covering oral arguments on that. I can't wait for the dive on that. Fannie Willis is in all sorts of hot water with Nathan Wade. There's a commissioner investigation that's going on into her. And where law and politics intersect, and especially if there's any philosophy to be gleaned from it, that's likely where you'll find me. And you'll find it in greater detail at goodlogic.locals.com, where you also find out what appearances I'm making. And I'll tell you something. I actually, when you were talking about this situation with Crumley, like, I have this brand new theory, this crazy new theory that is just, I mean, it's kind of mind blowing if you actually sort of speculate. And I don't know if I've aired this yet, but the theory I have about this lawyer, everyone's talking about